everyone. This is Miss Tara with the Niles District Library. We have another great 10-question program here today, and our special guest is Representative Fred Upton. Welcome, Fred.
Well, it is nice to be with all of you. Niles is a special place. You know, my brother's the athletic director for the high school, so a lot of good people in Niles. I've always had a strong following there and good supporters, but very proud of what they do and proud of our library too. So thank you for.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, and we appreciate you as well. Are you ready for our 10 questions?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Fire. Okay. So these questions are from the students at Niles New Tech High School. Special thanks to Jerry Holtgren, who is their leader there, and the two teachers whose classes submitted questions, Nick Holly and Maria Culbertson. So these are questions from their classes. So here we go. The first one is, what made you want to run for office?
Well, you know, it's an interesting, a great question. I really had no interest in running for Congress. I was really fortunate. I was living with a guy from Niles in Washington. I had never been there before till after I graduated from college. Make a long story short, I ended up working at the White House. That's where I met my wife. And so I had a number of friends, including some from Niles, reach out to me, and they said, Fred, we'd like you to think about running for Congress. You've never, and I said, no. I said, my wife and I are very happy. We got 2 black labs, dogs, and you know, I work at the White House, and I see that I'm in weekly meetings with the president, and you know, I salute the Marine Guard when you go in, very proud of it. And I had a pretty responsible job. And so I said no. So then they came back to me a couple months later and they said, come on, Fred, we can do better in terms of the congressman that was here then. And we'd like you to really consider it. So I came back, really tested the waters. I listened to people. I didn't make my decision up, tested the waters. And we decided, look, we can win. A lot of people said, we'd like to support you. We can do better. That was actually my theme of my first campaign.
Okay.
And I beat the only incumbent congressman to lose in the country in a primary in that year by 10 points.
Wow.
So I've been reelected ever since.
All right, great. So what is the hardest part of your job?
Well, the hardest part on the personal side is being gone from my family as much. You know, you got to live in 2 places. It comes with the territory. We knew that.
Right.
So my wife is in one place or the other. She, you know, and I virtually travel back and forth every week. COVID has been very tough experience for sure. And we do a lot of Zooms. I mean, this is already, I think, my 3rd Zoom today, and I got another 5 lined up this afternoon. I'm like by clockwork.
Yes.
But so that's been really tough. I mean, it's tough personally, you know, my parents are still alive, 97 and 91. I've got 2 kids, and, you know, my wife's just retired now as a minister. And it's the hardest part is being gone from your family. On the professional side, we have a lot of pretty tough issues and very strong opinions on both sides of the issue. So I've learned to get a pretty thick skin. People know I'm not a rubber stamp. I'm not going to vote just Republican or just against the Democrats on every bill. I'm going to try to figure out, how can I vote yes? How can we make this country better? How can we work together when we have divided government, which in essence is still what we have today.
Okay. All right. So another question that they have is, what is one piece of advice you would give the younger generation?
We need you. We really need you. So get a good education, but you can make a difference. You really can. I mean, for me, I had some pretty significant pieces of national legislation. Actually, have changed the world in a number of different ways. But you need to be a good listener, and you need to follow your heart, and you need to be civil. You don't need harsh words, but use the art of persuasion, the arguments of you know, real stats to try and get things done. And whether it's running for school board or state rep or Congress, you can do it. I mean, if you have some good ideas, you can build a team, and you need to be part of the process that moves our country forward. So that would be my message.
Well, that's great advice. So you got to listen, kids. All right. So before you were a state representative,
U.S.
Right, U.S. representative, sorry. What did you do before that? And do you ever miss that job?
Well, it was going to come to an end. So right before that, I worked at the White House. So I was a political appointee. I was in charge of congressional affairs for the Office of Management and Budget, which is a White House agency. So I lobbied members of Congress in both the House and the Senate on virtually every issue, with the exception of defense and national security. So it was a great job. My boss ended up being the chief of staff to the president. He and I talk probably almost every week still. He's in his 80s. Maybe not. Maybe, in case he's listening, maybe he's not quite that old, but his son actually ended up working for me. He's getting married this fall. It's actually pretty exciting for me to go see him get married. But those jobs come to an end. I mean, with the presidency, you have a whole new team that comes in. But I was really fortunate. I had a journalism degree from the University of Michigan. My wife knows I sleep in the basement when our team loses. But my original idea was that I was going to be a sports writer. I was going to follow the Cubs or the Wolverines or somebody else. And I was not the A sports editor for the Michigan Daily, which was the college paper, and covered a lot of sports. And that's where I thought I really would venture. But, it was a good background for me. Asking questions, following the truth, being transparent. And so, an opening came up, and again, I went off to Washington, never been there before, and moved up the ladder. And then people said, "We like your style, come back and run." And so I did. Okay.
All right, great. So we asked this question of Brad Paquette, but the kids are really interested to know, what do you think about year-round schooling?
Well, that's a good state issue, not a federal one. So my view, particularly on state issues and from the federal side, is stay out of the way.
Okay.
That's why we elect board members. That's why we elect state reps. You don't need the federal government dictating what really is a state responsibility. So it probably works in some communities. Some families may want it, but let's leave that flexibility at the local and state effort. Let's not have a federal mandate.
Okay, that's fair enough. What has been one of your favorite experiences during your time as our representative?
I have a whole laundry list of them. I'll tell you, I've had the opportunity to see our troops in combat. So I've been to Iraq. I've been to Afghanistan. Had to wear a flak vest, a bulletproof vest, and a helmet. Got to fly. You would know this name. Your students may not, but General Petraeus, he was the real architect of the win in Iraq. I flew in a Black Hawk helicopter with him for a day or two in Iraq. Wow. That was with Saddam Hussein. Again, your students may have to look at the history books.
I'm old enough to remember that.
Common back then, but Saddam Hussein was still running the show back there. And I can remember asking General Ordinero, who later became the Secretary of the Army, when are we going to get this guy? And he said, we're on his tail. We're going to get him in probably a week or two. And by golly, we did. So, I mean, I'm just thinking of, I've met heads of state, Nelson Mandela, just an amazing number of experiences. But I'm a strong supporter of our veterans, and seeing what they endure to keep our country free is probably one of my very top experiences.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's so interesting. I remember. I'm an old lady. I remember.
No, you're not either, but it's.
I remember Saddam Hussein. I remember that. All right. So since COVID, which is like the topic that's over everybody's head right now. Yep. Since COVID, what has been the hardest task to accomplish?
Well, COVID has changed all of our lives. Let's face it. My parents, again, I referenced them earlier, 97 and 91 years old. I mean, you just think of the impact on families. I've got a grandson now, couldn't go travel to see him. He's a year and a half. You look at obviously school and virtual learning and, are we the same if they were in classroom? No, we're not. Look at the impact on our economy. People didn't work, couldn't go to work. I know the first person that died of COVID, I knew well. His picture is on my desk in my office. He was a Vietnam vet, a chaplain at the hospital, may have got it there. I don't know, just an amazing veteran who was probably the most decorated probably the most decorated Berrien County veteran we've ever had.
Wow.
He was actually considered for the Medal of Honor. And, he and his wife got it and died relatively early in the COVID thing. So, and they couldn't have the funeral for months. So that impact is, I'm looking today at my schedule. I mean, we didn't have Zoom 2 years ago.
Yeah, no.
I think I'm doing 6 Zooms today, including a committee hearing. And tomorrow I'm doing a committee markup, which is we're actually marking up bills. We're writing legislation, passing amendments. 54 members of Congress on the Zoom. And I've got some amendments, bills, and I'll be doing it right here on my side porch. So it's tough. My wife has a pre-existing illness. She has lupus, which killed her sister. So she has to be very careful. So it's been a really tough year for so many different people. It's changed our lives forever. And it's been really tough. But, for those of us that are here, we survived, and we're anxious to see us return back to the way things were once before.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, COVID has just been so hard for everybody. And I think we can all relate to aspects of what you were saying about having to help people who couldn't go out and the death of a loved one. I think we're all connected by those feelings.
Yep. And I have, like so many people, we all know someone who died. I referenced Bud Baker, who I knew from our area, buried now in Buchanan. But, my I've got family members that have got COVID, cousins, and, my son got it probably once or twice, and so did his wife. So it has impacted us all in a very meaningful way.
Yes, for sure. So flipping to a little bit of a happier question. What do you like to do for fun when you're not working?
Well, we don't have enough hours in the day, that's for sure. I actually, years ago, was able to extend daylight savings time so people can play outside a little bit longer because you get the sunlight. Yeah. But I work hard, and I guess my wife would say that I play pretty hard too. I mean, I'm 68. I know I look like I'm your age, like what, low 30s, maybe. Don't ever say that. But, I like sports. I've already been in Lake Michigan. Yeah, it's a little bit cold. I'm a tennis player. I'm starting to play golf. I haven't lost too many balls yet this year. So that's a good thing. I love to ski. I've been skiing since I was a teenager. Survived a tree and a few other things. Thank goodness I had a helmet on. Yeah. But I love, my wife and I are watching a lot of Netflix.
Yeah.
And so I mean, for me, it's fun to see my parents. I've already been over there this morning. My brother, who again works for Niles Schools, lives just a couple doors down. We got a lot of family, a lot of cousins that live on my street here in St. Joe. So it's, those personal ties are fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know this is kind of weird times, but think of a normal time that we all kind of long for. So what's a normal day look like for the life of a U.S. representative?
Well, you got a couple of different days. So when I'm in Washington, I'm usually out the door about 7 in the morning. Okay. I'm one of the first people into the office. It beats the traffic. I hate traffic, and even, well, COVID, it's less, but it's still 7 miles to the office. And on a normal traffic day, it'll take 30 minutes. I mean, just because there's a lot, I have to cross a bridge. I live there in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm usually there till, I don't know, 7 or 8 at night, probably some nights later. A lot of votes and committee hearings and just a lot of work, for sure. A ton of meetings. Before COVID, I tried to meet with every constituent, every person that was from our district. If they gave us a little notice, I would try to carve a little time. Maybe they'd have to come to my committee hearing and see me or do something. But just a lot of meetings. I have a really brilliant staff. I mean, I'm just so lucky. My chief of staff, she's been with me for all these years, 35 years.
Oh, wow.
Michigan. I've got 2 offices here in Michigan, one in St. Joe, one in Kalamazoo. So my district operation, again, is different with COVID because usually I started this morning before sunrise, doing some Zoom call. I do a traditional radio show every morning up in Holland. I'm not going to be traveling out of the Twin Cities today, but tomorrow I'll be in Kalamazoo. Yesterday I was in Paw Paw. I put a lot of miles on my car, just a lot of meetings. People are, meetings on Sundays. I mean, it's just, you're never away from your phone or your iPad in terms of outreach and, hearing from the White House on different issues. I'm working on some pretty big things. And, but I know to get things done, you got to work together. So it's a complex job. And I got to know what's going on in the world. So I'm constantly checking out different websites on what's going on with colleagues, hearing from people as we try to mesh together a positive agenda.
Okay. So guys, if this is a job that you're interested in, it's definitely a commitment. You have to put everything
You
in.
need your coffee, and I drink it black. I don't put any sweetener in it at all.
Need some coffee and a good car with gas mileage. Our 10th question from the kids. So how has your time in office impacted specifically teens? What kinds of things are happening that will affect them?
Well, a lot of different ways. Education is important. And whether it's technical education, and I use that as a STEM education, learning skills, or going on to higher education like you did with a master's degree, those costs are expensive,
I feel that in my heart.
So you're going to die when I tell you this. So are your students. When I went to the University of Michigan, I was an in-state student. My tuition was $330 for the semester.
Oh, that's not fair.
Kids. So how do we make higher education more affordable? So I served on the education committee once, and I've always supported additional funds for student loans and that type of thing so that every family has the ability to send their son or daughter on to higher education if they desire.
All right, so I'm going to sneak in an 11th question from me, if that's all right. So
Sure.
I'm a librarian, and I'd like to know what your favorite book is. It can be a kid's book, it can be an adult book, it can be the book.
So I've always been a good reader.
Okay.
I got a lot of books, but one book that I really enjoyed reading not too long ago. Oh, I don't remember the title, but it was about, well, I'll tell you my favorite author, Candace Millard.
Okay.
Is lives in Kansas. She's written 3. I've read all of her books. She's written 3. I actually had the opportunity to have dinner with her one night. She came and addressed a group. I was at the Library of Congress. Okay. And she wrote a really terrific book about Teddy Roosevelt that was really almost, it's a page, it's unbelievable. It's called River of Doubt. And he explored South America after leaving the presidency. And it was just a remarkable book. And then I read her next book, and it was not as good, but still good, about an assassination of the president, Garfield, and the story of the assassin and him. And he actually ended up not dying because of the being shot instantly. He died months later because he got gangrene. They couldn't find the bullet. It was always inside him. So, but that was a remark. But then she wrote a really good book on Churchill.
Okay.
Before he became prime minister, he was a journalist, and he went down to cover the Boers War, Boers, down in South Africa. And he was it's a true story. He was captured. They knew who he was. His father had been, I think, prime minister before, so a Churchill. I mean, they knew who he was. And because he was in, he took up arms to defend himself. He was viewed as a prisoner of war and was probably going to be executed. And he escaped. An incredible tale. And obviously, you know the ending because he became prime minister. He helped to win World War II.
Yeah.
You know that he escaped and survived, but it literally, they chased him across Africa for 800 miles. He had no language, this was 1920s, I think. So, just an incredible tale. And Candace Millard is quite the author.
Okay, well, that's 3 books to add to your list.
All right.
All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. Upton, for joining our little show today.
Glad to be with you. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. So friends, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Niles District Library Virtual Programming. The button's down there somewhere. And be sure to follow Fred Upton on all of his updates for being our state rep. So make sure to keep up on what's going on out there. And special thanks to Niles New Tech students for your great questions. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Jerry Holtgren, Nick Holly, and Maria Culbertson for putting this all together for us. So we'll see you next time for another great 10-question program. But until then, see you on the flip side. Bye, friends.